Hello and welcome everyone to the dev stream for update 10.10. Also, the final reveal of the Chronicles reveal campaign. And I've got Jean with me here, so thank you very much for taking the time. And hello, Jean.
Hello, beautiful Gwent people.
We're in a new setup, as you can see. We always love switching it up, as Borja said. So, we hope that everything is going to be smooth as silk today. But I think before we get into the reveals and the balance changes, we can take a quick look at what has been revealed so far.
Yes.
And actually, we started our reveal campaign with Northern Realms. First of all, thank you very much to all the Gwent partners that took part in this reveal campaign. Once again, I always love the creativity that everyone brings to the table and all the different ways that you present the new cards. We finally got some actual gameplay of the cards in the reveals as well, which was awesome that worked out. Shout out to the team, all the hardworking people that made that possible. And now let's take a look at the Northern Realms cards. We had the Reaver Hunters coming back into the game.
Yeah.
People very excited for that. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I mean, without going into much detail of the cards themselves, the general idea was to focus on soldier spam. So if you remember that old meme deck you did with Centurion Knight, maybe now is the time to actually bring it back.
I will definitely try that out. Then on to the next faction, we had Nilfgaard, also some knights, now stealing not only cards but archetypes from Northern Realms. We've got knights, and they also have the grace ability on 2 of those. Very interesting. So what were your thoughts behind that?
Yeah, so following the massive reworks of 10.9, we wanted to tie the knot of this and address the Nilfgaard Knight, which kind of already existed, right? And there was this premise of an idea of buffing your opponent's cards. So we doubled down on that direction, right? Yeah. And in fact, we have more reworks of some of the existing Nilfgaard Knights coming in this patch, and we'll go through them later.
Awesome. Yeah, I think people are looking forward to that because there's been wild speculation on how this archetype is going to end up looking in the game. But not to get ahead of ourselves, let's take a quick look at the Square Tell reveals. A new keyword in the game, a new category as we like to call it, Naiads. Is it Naiad?
Yeah, it's Naiad.
It's a Naiad, yeah, right. Dryad, Naiad, it rhymes and they are closely connected. But not only that, also frogs now. Frogs in Square Tell. So what do you got to say on that?
So yeah, coming back to this devotion archetype that is Symbiosis, something I think is really cool with these new Naiad cards is that the bronzes themselves, in a vacuum, they might not feel so good, but the fact that you're able to give them this nature category through Augment suddenly makes them into cards that you absolutely want to consider in your Symbiosis deck.
Very true.
And in the case of Frog Mating Season, we think it's a quite interesting nature special because you get to, use more easily these vitality that you might be stacking, and there's potential movement synergies. That's what you're into. You can do a lot of stuff with this card.
Very flexible. And now, next up, Syndicate.
Yes.
Very cool as well, especially the return of Siggy Reuven, the mastermind himself. At least his artwork is finally back in the game with a very nice ability now. So yeah, what were the design team's thoughts on that?
So with Siggy, we wanted to, come back to this idea of multi-gang support, which kind of already exists in the game. Well, through the original Siggy Reuven himself, but also cards like Collision. So Siggy and his agents are playing into this idea of, having all of these different gangs on your board. And that's going to mean that it's going to be a deck that is hard to pilot, hard to deck build. Well, nothing new for Syndicate.
Yeah. Also, hidden MVP Bart is finally in the game. Remember last reveal campaign we had the lovely people from TCG or TG GWENT actually incorporate Bart into the reveal that they had. I'm very happy that they managed to reveal this time around. And moving on into the last faction that we kind of had revealed during the week, we've got Skelliga, right? Yeah,
Skelliga. So for Skelliga, we have, expanded on this idea of the Bloodthirst mechanic, and in general, wide damage, right? Adding a lot of units on the board being damaged. And so for that, we have introduced new payoffs. So for instance, Sov, but also new ways to set it up, like Feral Bond or Brother Warrior. And we've also introduced this general support for warrior in the form of Ulula, which, might make you look into cards that already existed, but were not necessarily so good, like Handle, for instance, with a completely new high.
All right. That's it for Skelliga. That's the 5 factions that we've revealed so far during the week. Now, we've had 3 lovely reveals already during this open. So if you've missed them, make sure to check out the previous recordings of yesterday and today. There's one monster card that is left for us to reveal.
Yep.
And for that, we actually like to take the opportunity now in this new setup to actually go back into the deck builder and give you some live footage of the cards and what they do. So let's take a look at Karanthia Golden Child. Ooh boy. Love that premium, love that art, and it reads, at the start of your turn, while in hand or deck, reset own power and boost self by the damage dealt by Frost in the last 5 enemy turns. 1 point, 8 provision, and it's got a really nice couple of categories right there, Elf, Wildhunt, and Mage. But Jean, tell me about this ability and what do these 5 zeros at the end actually mean?
Yeah, so let's talk about monsters in general first. We wanted to come back to the Wildland archetype and expand on this idea of using Frost across different turns. And for that, Karanthia is a payoff for that, right? Where we've designed it in such a way that you have to carefully consider where exactly you want to be playing him, rather than, if you think of like the regular Harald Gore design, you kind of just want to play them at the end. Well, it is not the case for Karanthia. You have to carefully plan out when he's dropping. And for that, it is important for you to be, tracking the damage you've done in these 5 different turns. And this is what the 5 zeros at the end are feedbacking, right?
Okay.
Like the leftmost 0 is going to show you the previous turn, and the rightmost 0 is going to be the damages you done like 5 turns ago, right? And that way you can kind of see how Karanthia is going to keep evolving in the upcoming turns, so that you can, properly plan out when you want to drop him.
I think more visibility inside the card's text is always a great thing, and I love to see this development in that direction as well, or enforcing that more and more, because there's already so many things to keep track of inside of the game, so these things help a lot. Very cool. Let's move on to another monster card, but it's actually a kind of a rework change.
More like an ability tweak. It is Imlerith Wrath.
Imlerith Wrath. All right, let's take a look. Imlerith Wrath is coming up right here. Oh, it's got a little bit of a change right there. So now it reads, damage an enemy unit by the power of your highest power unit. If it was on a row with Frost, destroy it instead.
Yeah, so the card didn't, change that much, right? Like the original ability, damage an enemy unit by the power of your highest power units, is all the same. But the condition used to be if Imlerith is on your board. And that used to be a bit awkward, right? Because you kind of wanted to play Imlerith late, which didn't really fit the fact that Imlerith Wrath is, a reactive card.
Yeah.
So we figured that changing the condition for something that makes more sense in Wildland in terms of the stuff that you're doing would be appreciated.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Next up.
Yeah, I do want to comment quickly though on another monster card we revealed, right? Tianalia. Because we have this kind of unique condition we set up for it of counting unique bronzes in your deck. And so what we wanted to do with this card was reward you for, using the full diversity of the bronzes available to you in Wildland.
All right. There you have it. Yeah. Monsters. I'm excited to test out the new Wild Hunt, let's say, face that they've got, the new fresh coat of paint. And then another very frosty card.
Oh, God.
Let's take a look at the new Sea Heel.
These terrible puns. Go ahead.
You're not going to get rid of me. Sea Heel is now gotten a little bit of a tweak to its text and ability. First of all, it still damages an enemy unit by 1. And the death blow is still the same, where if you play a bronze card from your hand, then move Sea Heel back to your hand. But if you reach that damage 3, it actually gets transformed into Masterful Sea Heel. and Masterful Seal is kind of gonna stay consistently at that 3 damage level, right?
Yep, that's it. Well, in terms of pure performance, Sail was a card that was, has always mostly been underperforming. But it was very polarizing in its matchups, and it could feel really, really bad to play against in certain of them, right? And just impossible to maintain the board once the damage had risen up. And well, that felt bad. So with this iteration, we kind of wanted to try to keep the original flavor, keep it as a card that you can build around and that you're supposed to build around, but put a hard cap on the damage that it can reach.
Yeah.
And so the way it's going to perform is that so when it is at 3 power and you trigger once again the initiative effect with the death blow, right? Well, so when it was supposed to reach for 4 damage, then it is transformed instead into Masterful Seal. And Masterful Seal is this version that is permanently at 3 damage, but to compensate for it, we removed the death blow condition, right? You don't need to be doing the death blow anymore. So what we expect from this card is going to be less oppressive to play against, while still, giving you this advantage that you do have to work for, and that you can keep using after that point throughout the rest of the game.
I see. That's a nice change. I think people will appreciate the ability to play, well, maybe around it a little bit more or not feel so oppressed by it, as you said. While we're on the topic of neutrals, there's actually a neutral card, actually 2 neutral cards that got a little bit of a tweak. So let's take a look at the slides right here, going from the reveals into the neutral slide. Shoop. Rapik will be happy, is getting a 2 power buff all across its 3 forms. And why don't we stay on that topic real quick?
Well, I mean, the other one also makes sense, right? Because both of these cards, Shoop and Radaya, are the Highlander deck building condition, right? One of the original deck building condition. And we think it is a very interesting restriction, right? Because it is a restriction that brings variety to deck building, where it's going to open up space for bronzes that otherwise you wouldn't really consider running. And so, that makes it something that we are happy to see in the meta. But the thing is, these payoffs for this Highlander condition, they had kind of become less enticing with time as we've introduced more exciting cards in the game. So something that we think is very important for stuff that you're supposed to deck build around is that they have to be exciting and high hand. So in the case of Shoop Day Off, we decided to increase the power of all of the Shoops so that it actually feels like one of these high-hand, exciting cards that's going to be one part of your big game plan, right?
Yeah.
And in the case of Radaya, where we decided instead to lower the provision, well, Radaya, her ability doesn't feel as unique nowadays. And so we felt that it made more sense to, make her more affordable and use as a kind of utility card, though it is still 10 provision, right?
Yeah, I'm excited for the carryover. That's now 2 points more. We'll see how that plays out inside of the game. All right, I think that's it for neutrals. Moving on into the green faction, we've got Squirtle up next. And Squirtle, there's 2 changes that you wanted to highlight. First of all, a provision change to Guerrilla Tactics. Now only fit 15 provisions into your deck. And Simla's also got a little bit of a nerf right there. Now you have to pay 13 provision to put them into your deck.
So in this patch, we've kind of focused on mid-range nerfs, which you can expect also to see in some other factions. The idea behind the Guerrilla Tactics nerfs is that even though we've nerfed it through, increasing Sharpshooter provision in the last patch, the ability has stayed incredibly popular. In fact, it is even run in some deck without Sharpshooter.
Yeah.
And so we think that it deserves to lose 1 provision. Simlas is in a similar situation where it was basically finding its place in most Squirtle deck, being ran as a mid-range package alongside, a few special, just for its pure point slam potential and, the thinning it was obviously bringing. So here too, 1 more provision.
All right. That's Skelligible.
Yeah.
Next up, we would like to talk and take a quick look at Syndicate. Let's check out the change that we want to highlight right here. It's the Shady Vendor. Profit is now down to 1. The Conjurer's Candle, widely seen in many Syndicate decks, now only profits 4. And then Gellert Bleinheim is actually upping his adrenaline to 6.
So Shady Vendor, Conjurer's Candle, 2 cards that were basically being seen in almost all Syndicate decks. Just very solid cards. So we've decided to remove 1 Prophet from Shady Vendor, which does, well, obviously reduce the value of the card, but also makes it a bit more, tricky to play, right? Because you do need to have more coins on hand if you want to be triggering the tribute. And in the case of Conjurer's Candle, we did nerf it in 10.8, right, where we increased its provision by 1, and it turns out it didn't really affect the card. We are happy with people playing it, but it's still a bit too much, and so we think removing 1 Prophet is deserved.
Yeah. All right. Another.
I do have to talk about Blindheim, right?
Of course.
Which doesn't find is is placed in as many decks, but it's still a cornerstone of many. And it is being run with or without failed experiment, right? It's just different forms of poison package, but when there is poison, there is Blindheim. And considering the pure use rate of the card and the strength it brings to that deck, we think that the card doesn't deserve to be immune as long, and so we've just increased its adrenaline, which as a result will make it lose its immunity 1 turn sooner.
All right, so you can take it out a bit quicker.
Yep.
Very nice. See ya, Blindheim. On to Collusion now.
Yes.
Actually, got a nice little touch right there. We can swap over to the deck builder once again and take a look. Provision is now at 9, and I mean, I really like these small things, but look at that. It's Sigi right there, and then he's here as well.
Yeah.
Oh, so cute. All right.
Yeah, so just a provision buff, and some people are going to be disappointed in that, and so we wanted to take the time to explain why we're not changing Collusion, and more specifically adding a payoff for Salamandra. Well, the thing is, Collusion depicts a very particular event, right? Like the formation of the gangs, and Salamandra didn't partake in that event. And so we, for one, wanted to stay faithful to the lore on this. Plus, we think that with the focus on multi-gang and the direct support the card is getting from Sigurd and Meistermind, just having 1 less provision just makes it a very interesting payoff. It also opens up the door to Golden Necker. Just saying.
All right. That's what we've got on Syndicate. Would you like to go into a specific faction next? Maybe Northern Realms?
Yeah, sure. Let's go Northern Realms.
All right. Let's take a look at the slide that we've got for Northern Realms. It is actually Princess Pavetta, King Foltest, and Blue Striped Scout all being changed in a way where they can only, let's say, interact, so shuffle and spawn non-neutral units. So my mind immediately goes to the Renfrey decks, right?
Yeah, exactly. So these changes target very specifically the Renfrey gang spam deck. It was not the particularly major deck, but the thing is that Renfrey gangs was basically taking the spot from Blue Striped Commando, right? It wasn't any new tactics. It just was doing it better because it was using the Renfrey gangs instead of the Commando. And that's not really something we were happy with, that we desired, and it could have been hindering us in the future. So we decided to get rid of it for now.
All right, fair enough. Should we take a look at the leader change that you brought into this patch as well? It's actually possible if we take a look right here at the Northern Realms, and it is mobilization. Now, actually down to 15 provision, but a little bit of a boost right there.
Yeah, it got 3 points actually, because mobilization used to only boost the copy that was being spawned, and it is now also boosting the target, right? So yeah, basically we are supporting soldier spam. Mobilization is the obvious leader ability that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to give it a bit of love.
And it got a little bit of that.
Yeah, a little of love. Yep.
Awesome. All right. Now there's another faction waiting. It's a Skelliga. And for Skelliga, we've got another slide prepared right here. It tells you that we've got Army of the Patricide going up in power. We've got the Drummond Berserker losing a provision cost, so a little bit cheaper to run. And the same goes for the Brockvar Archer, both now at 4 provision.
Yeah, so we're kind of breaking a pattern here because it's been a few patches since
changes.
Yeah, like even talking about buffs, it's not really what we were giving Skelliga. Well, to be fair, they were in a very good spot.
Yep.
But with this support to Bloodthirst and in general the Wounded archetype, we wanted to push it and help it out with a few changes. So Army of the Patricide getting more power is because it is the leader ability that directly support Bloodthirst. Brockvar Archer was also a card that we wanted to put on the player's radar by diminishing its provision. And finally, Drummond Berserker is a card that is kind of outvalued nowadays, which is why we also love its provision. And it actually has like some very, very cool interactions with Ulula, so I recommend you try it out.
Ooh la la. I'm excited to try that out.
Help me out, guys.
Back in the deck builder, because we can actually take a look at one actual Skellige card right here. And it is the Suval Blood Totem.
Yep.
The totem now has an auto ability with cooldown. So you can reuse it. Yeah. And it actually damages an allied unit by 2.
Yeah, it lets you target instead of doing damage adjacent units, right?
Yeah.
So we think this Battle Totem has always been a pretty neat card.
Yep.
But it had kind of fallen out of flavor, and so with this tweak, we kind of wanted to try making it a bit more relevant by providing utility value, and more specifically in the Southern game plan. So we'll see if players make use of this change.
All right. So I like your pun on the C because there's C in the card right there. So nicely played there, Jean. Intentional or not.
Oh god.
On to the next faction. Nilfgaard is waiting in the shadow. We've got a couple of slides for Nilfgaard actually because there's been some changes.
Yeah, let's talk about the changes directly related to 10.9 first. Now Secret Surgeons, obviously, has been used a lot. And well, the condition is definitely easier to achieve than what was initially expected.
Yeah.
I mean, easier to achieve isn't the proper way to say it, but more like not as punishing as we could have expected. And so we realized that, well, the card fits the definition, of 6 provisioning card rather than a 5, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, this card was being copied around a lot, and well, copies don't care about provision. So this is why we've also targeted the ways to copy it. Slave Driver was one of these ways, which is getting 1 less power. But we've also seen a lot of Brathens and auto-use Vigo, which not only were profiting from it by playing it, but also from the assimilate triggers, right? So Brathen getting 1 less power and Vigo getting 1 more provision for it.
And what were your thoughts on the Ducal God?
Ducal God in this case is a card that we actually were scared of when we were playtesting 10.9. And that we, internally nerfed quite a few times. It turns out that the card is kind of underperforming nowadays, so we're giving it a bit of help by raising its power.
Awesome. Okay, I think it's time to
go for new stuff, yeah.
For another reveal, and this reveal is now closely connected to one of the leader abilities that has been changed. And as you can see right here, there's one missing, and there's a new one. So it's how do you pronounce it?
Toussaint-toi Hospitality.
Toussaint-toi Hospitality. All right.
Terrible.
Perfect. As you can see, lockdown is gone. This is here in its place, and it gives you 50 provision, and it has an order: spawn and play Bohur, and whenever you boost 1 or more enemy units during your turn, boost a random allied unit by 1. So I think you can talk a bit more about why we decided to take this step, but to me, pretty straightforward ability on the one side, but supporting maybe an archetype that didn't have that kind of leader.
Absolutely. It is a very straightforward leader. In fact, much of his design can make you think of other existing one, like that Skelliga one, right? That spawns Mydrum. The idea is that we felt that to further push the game plan we were going for, it was important to offer a leader ability that synergized with it. And well, you know, Lockdown had never really worked out since its rework. Didn't bear the fruits we were expecting it to. And so we just decided to fully rework it, which, you know, might open up the space for up to maybe one day reconsider doing this type of effect, potentially on cards. Who knows? We're not there yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's all I have to say on Toussaint Hospitality.
All right. That's only one of the two big changes that we've made for, let's say, this archetype.
There's not only two.
No. There's a lot more. And one of my favorite ones is actually the change that we did to our golden boy, Kahir. Very similar ability, but one could say also very different, because now it only receives a boost if you boosted the enemy unit, or if they were boosted during your own turn. So they can basically play their own game plan while you do your own thing. And to compensate that, it now has 7 power.
Yeah, instead of 5. Let's be honest, this is a nerf. And a nerf that we felt was necessary because Kahir can be a very polarizing card where, you know, if as the opponent, if you're not able to answer it, and your game plan is to boost a lot, well, suddenly everything you're doing is completely useless, right? And the thing is, as we were pushing for this game plan of boosting your opponent's unit, well, Kahir is an obvious synergy to it, right? Like, it's gonna profit from the main thing you're doing.
Yeah.
So if you already want to be running him, and not only is it profiting from what you're doing, but it is also it has this potential to completely counter some of decks you can encounter, we thought that it was a dangerous mix. And so we tweaked Kahir to be about the main thing we want it to be about.
All right. Yeah, I think this is one of my favorite changes. As you said, this allows this archetype for Nilfgaard to thrive throughout their own game plan, while not completely hindering any opponents that don't have a solution to it while boosting their own cards. So nicely done. Also can obviously still be locked and all the other shenanigans, or moved even to the back row. But let's take a look at the next slide that we've prepared. It's still Nilfgaard. As we said, we've got a couple of changes right here for this faction. False Siri and Rainfarn of Atra, both on this slide. First of all, False Siri, I think you can talk a bit more about the change and its new ability, right?
Yeah. 2 disloyal cards. So False Series, some of you that were there during the beta might get a throwback, right? Because False Series in the beta was this disloyal card that was buffing itself and then coming back to you. And so we've went back to this ID, and you know, on Grace, we're using Grace to be the trigger of when she comes back. And something quite interesting is that makes her a target that you might potentially want to boost, you know? Maybe. Because if she's like 6 power and you boost her by 4, well, now you got a 10 coming back to you. That's cool. And yeah, like one thing to note is that the Purify is there so that she loses the spying status as she comes back, because she's not spying anymore.
Very fair. I feel like this must be one of the cards that has been changed the most throughout the history of GWENT. But I'm excited to try out the new old version. What do you have to say about Rainfarn then?
Rainfarn, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right?
7 points to give to the enemy, that's quite
Yeah. But the thing is, in a game plan where you're buffing your opponent's unit, boosting your opponent's unit, you have the potential to profit a lot from his effect. But obviously, with 7 points of body, you're gonna have to make sure that this buff he's providing is worth his 7 points.
Yeah. You know what? There's one scenario where I can see this card being played, regardless of other cards in your deck, just as a standalone. is if Vi ever is like the main meta deck to beat, then you just play this in between two Vi targets.
Anyways, you can definitely use this counter. Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see some highlight clips from that card, that's for sure. All right, there's one last slide for Nilfgaard that we've got, and it is right around the corner right here. We've got Milton and Palmerin, the duo, the famous duo from, well, Toussaint and the Knight region. And as you said, this is all about Knights in Nilfgaard this time around. So first of all, Milton now 6 power, 6 provision, deploy, boost an enemy unit by 4, then boost self by 4. And it's got an order, boost self by the last boosts you gave to an enemy unit this round. So you kind of have to take the right moment when you activate this ability, right?
Yeah, but if you look at Palmerin,
4 power, 8 provision, deploy, choose an unboosted enemy unit, then play the top card from your deck and boost that unit by that card's provision cost. So you take a look at your top card, check the provision, and then boost the enemy unit by that. If you control Milton, you may choose 3 cards, and, well, you choose 1 out of 3 cards, and then, you know, do the same thing.
So the way they work is that you probably want to be playing Milton first.
Have it on the board.
Yeah. Then you drop Palmerin, and then you click Milton's order, expecting, you know, a big boost from Palmerin.
And maybe Nilfgaard has some tools to, you know, set up a high provision card on top of your deck.
That's also true.
Interesting.
But the idea is that we wanted to keep these cards synergizing with one another. And we kind of like this idea of, like, you know, serving both as a way to set up and a way to pay off.
Yeah. Awesome. Speaking of payoff, I think we made it towards the end of this video. We have a few more infos, especially on the topic of Nilfgaard as well. There's been a change to the training mode. Do you want to explain why we did that?
We've decided to disable Nilfgaard from the pool of decks you can encounter in training. You know, most of the time at the moment, if you're queuing up in training matches, practice against AI, it is because you want to test out a synergy, test out if a deck is flowing nicely. And encountering Nilfgaard in this kind of situation, being blocked in what you're trying to do by locks and, you know, the old lockdown and everything, didn't really feel good. So we decided to straight up remove it from the pool and leave it for, you know, more straightforward decks that are already in there.
All right. And finally, as well, we've got a new, well, returning game mode. We've got a game mode where you can test out the new cards once again. It's called Trial by Fire. And we did a little bit of a tweak to the decks this time around, right?
Yep. Because, well, this is what we introduced in 10.7, right, to showcase the new cards. So we're doing this again, 10.10, new decks with new cards. Except in 10.7, these were decks with lower provisions.
Yeah.
This time we're trying something a bit different, and these are properly built decks, full on provisions. Try to be a bit more faithful to the experience you might get on the ladder. Obviously, probably not the most optimized deck out there. Like, there's a limit to what we can do. We'll see how it plays out. And do let us know if you've preferred this way of doing things, or if you were more into the lower provision versions we did on 10.7.
Exactly. All the feedback on the seasonal modes is highly welcomed. And I think people really, for example, love the strategy aspect of the
barely balanced.
Exactly, the barely balanced game mode. That's already a highlight for me as well. And now, to your horror, I've got one last topic which I didn't prepare with you. And speaking of horror, it's the Halloween season coming up at the end of the month. So, nice segue on that sense. We've got a special event at the end of the month. Just a quick teaser, you're going to read about it tomorrow in the patch notes as well. But a Halloween event is coming at the end of the month. So 27th of October, if the date doesn't change, up until probably 7th of November. And you're going to be joining Geralt and Dandelion on a murder mystery in your reward book. But still, I'm pretty excited for that.
Sure.
Lots of cosmetics and some other highlights coming this month. So I'm really excited for October. It's also my birthday.
And I wonder who did it.
I wonder who did it, man. I wonder who did it.
What?
Anyways, thank you for taking the time. And also, big shout out again. I wanted to say thank you to Jean in front of the camera as well for always being on the dev streams with us, preparing the script, putting in a lot of effort on what we want to cover. And yeah, thank you for watching. And now, good luck to the finalists in the final matchup of today's Open. And I hope you enjoy the patch on Tuesday. Bye.
Enjoy the matches.